I thought I was going to speak.
Pardon, Dennis?
I thought I was going to speak. Who's this expert?
Someone who you cannot see.
Okay.
Hi, June. Karen, great to have you.
Hi, happy
Hi.
to attend.
Perfect. Dennis, Karen is starting a new club in her job. She is the pioneer. She's working hard to get her 20 applications. Hi, Porus. Great to have you. Porus is coming from Taiwan. Hello, Hank. We're going to start in like 1 minute. Perfect, Niharika. Wow, it's the calm before the storm. Everyone is quiet.
Hello, good morning, everyone. How are you doing?
Good
I
morning.
missed you all.
Oh, great to have you, Nuha.
Yeah.
Finally, it's been a long time since we
I
have
know.
seen you.
Welcome, Nuha.
Well, thank you.
Hello.
Finally, I got to take a vacation for 1 month. So
We get to see you. That's awesome.
Yes.
thank you.
Welcome to Intercontinental Toastmasters. My name is Abhijit. Before we proceed, everyone, please mute their mics. Let me introduce you to someone special. He attended his first Toastmaster meeting because there was free pizza. He is the district humorous speech champion, the district tall tales champion, the district evaluations champion. Let me welcome the two-time distinguished Toastmaster, Dennis Dawson. It's all you, sir.
That is all me. It's plenty for anybody. Let me share my screen. So welcome, everyone. I have to say, I come to this topic tonight humbly. I know you've got many talented speakers in this club and seasoned evaluators. Nevertheless, I do have a confession. I am an advanced speaker. I've won district contests, served as a district officer. I've given over 100 evaluated speeches based on lessons and Toastmasters materials, and I give workshops like the one I'm doing right now. So if I'm such toast with awesome sauce, why am I still in Toastmasters? Well, the same reason as all of you, to continually improve my communication and leadership skills. You see, using Malcolm Gladwell's chart of skill mastery, we tend to build skills very quickly when we start out for the first 1,000 hours. After that, the progress is more gradual, but it's still important. So I hope you'll understand why I find it frustrating as an advanced speaker to hear my evaluator say, "Oh my, you're just so good, I don't know what to say." Folks, no one is a perfect speaker. I'm far from it. I want to grow. I rely on my fellow Toastmasters to help me continually improve by giving me useful, effective evaluations. And I need to do the same for everyone else. So tonight, I'll spend about 25 minutes talking about giving feedback that's focused on the speaker's needs. I'll talk about how you go to a deeper level to give a more nuanced sort of evaluation. I'll talk about the importance of giving honest, empathetic feedback. Then we're going to have 3 speakers, each of whom will get 2 evaluations, and I'll give feedback to the evaluators. So let's begin by empathizing with the speaker. Evaluations are the heart of Toastmasters. They're the core of the education program, but they're also how we show that we care for one another. If you're worried about how you're going to evaluate a speaker, It's because you're focused on yourself. You're worried about being too critical. You're worried about sounding dumb. You're worried about what others will think of you or what the speaker will think of you. But you can easily move past these feelings if you remember that the evaluation isn't about you. There are no experts in Toastmasters, no teachers. There are only peers who can give their honest opinions. So focus on the speaker's growth. Think about how you'll help the speaker and not about yourself. See, in Toastmasters, we rise to every occasion. That's an acronym for our 4 governing principles: respect, integrity, service, and excellence. We show respect. We respect the educational program, yes, and that means we respect the New Pathways program and its lessons. We follow the rules and create an environment that allows everyone to achieve their communication and leadership goals, resulting in greater self-confidence and self-respect. But remember that respect is a two-way street. You have to respect yourself. Your observations matter. You can always tell any speaker what you saw, heard, and felt while they were speaking. That feedback is always useful and appreciated if you're honest and observant. You also have to respect the speaker. The speaker has prepared a speech and had the temerity to deliver it to your club. The speaker deserves to receive a thoughtful evaluation. And by the way, if the speaker obviously hasn't prepared well, they deserve an evaluation about that too. In one of my home clubs, I was assigned as an evaluator to a longtime member. I asked what lesson he was using. He said, none. He had that infamous yellow sticky note in his right hand. He was going to give a 4 to 6 minute speech about what Toastmasters means to me. He'd done a speech like this before and the club said it was okay. Well, he got up and he gave a rambling, less than coherent blathering, something like a table topic, and it lasted about 3 minutes. I didn't hold back in his evaluation. I took him to task for stealing a valuable speaking slot from someone who could have used it to advance in the Pathways program. I took him to task for not preparing, but mostly I took him to task for his disrespect of the educational program, his fellow members, and the Toastmasters organization itself. Obviously, the club was aghast, but I continued. I apologized to him for the club letting him down, allowing him to be in the club for years without building his skills. I assured him that we all love him, we wanted to succeed, and promised we would do better to help him reach his goals. Now, shocking as it was a growth moment for the club. I wasn't kicked out of the club. In fact, I was elected president. And my friend didn't quit, but he's now engaged in Pathways and really showing improvement. No member has given a speech outside the Pathways curriculum since that meeting. Now, I could have just let it go, but it's a question of integrity. Do I want to be a part of a club where members don't work the program? Well, no. If I don't like this chapter, I literally have 16,000 other clubs to choose from now that we're all meeting online. We need to act with integrity in all things. Be truthful and be honest. Be kind. Express your opinions with affection, but don't shy away from saying what needs to be said. Now, Toastmasters is an organization that teaches leadership skills, but not just any sort of leadership. We champion servant leadership. You're here to provide service to your fellow members. When I was district governor, it meant that I turned on the lights in the morning and then picked up the trash and turned off the lights in the evening. Leadership isn't notoriety or glamour. It's working to help others have fun and achieve their goals. One important service we all provide one another is thoughtful feedback. Now, we are what we do regularly. Therefore, excellence is a habit. We want all speeches to be excellent. We're not preparing to talk to 10 people in the back of the Denny's. We're preparing to give TED Talks. We're preparing to give keynote speeches at professional conferences. Give feedback as if you're helping the next world champion of public speaking, and one of these days, you might be right. So never doubt that you're ready to evaluate any speaker. You have a right to express what you see, hear, and feel when a speaker's presenting. You can't be wrong when you're stating what you observed. You have a responsibility to give excellent feedback as an active member of your club. And you have a duty to deliver feedback that gives encouragement, helps the speaker grow, and is edifying for everyone present. Now, you know that you're tasked with giving helpful feedback. But when you're evaluating an experienced speaker, you'll evaluate them based on the same criteria and add a more nuanced approach. Believe it or not, the best way to start with an advanced speaker is to ask yourself how they did with the basics. In Toastmasters, we first learn the mechanics of how to create an effective presentation. After that, we use those skills to achieve particular results, to inspire, to persuade, or to entertain. The rules that we learn are meant to be broken as we progress and experiment with different formats and intentions. So ask two questions. Did the speaker follow the basic rules? And where they broke the rules, was it intentional and was it effective? Answer those questions, you'll have a ready-made evaluation, finding areas to praise and areas for improvement. Now remember, there are no free speeches. Every speech has a lesson in the Pathways program. Experienced speakers are often less likely to pay attention to the requirements for a particular lesson. You need to read the criteria and talk to the speaker about what they want you to focus on in your evaluation. Consider both of these, and this will usually give you something to talk about. Now, to my shame, when I completed my first path, I prepared a 5 to 7 minute speech where I reflected on my journey. I had a fancy video Zoom background to go with it. Speech was well received. In the same meeting, another speaker reflected on her path. She gave an 8 to 10 minute speech per the lesson guidelines. I was voted best speaker of the day, but I didn't accept it because I hadn't followed the lesson. And in fact, I redid the speech at another club, this time properly following the guidelines. DTM means Distinguished Toastmaster. It doesn't mean don't time me. It doesn't mean didn't take much. I need to be held accountable to my Toastmasters commitments as much or more so than any other members. The DTM isn't something you own or something you do. It's not a plaque you hang on the wall. I have to earn my title every time I speak, or it doesn't mean a thing. Now, I want to show you the grid that I use to capture notes during an evaluation. I divide the page into 2 columns, one for positive comments and one for areas of improvement. Then I divide it horizontally into what I saw, what I heard, and what I felt. I draw a little eye, an ear, and a heart on the side, just so that I have a place, each of these little 6 quadrants, where I can go directly and capture what it is I notice about the speech. Where I'm focused on what is said, I will write down specific quotes whenever possible so that I can refer to what the speaker specifically said when I'm doing the evaluation. Now, you don't have to give a laundry list of all the things they did well and all the things where they need to improve. When you're evaluating an experienced speaker, look at your notes and pull out the most unique or significant areas. Try to surprise the speaker with your insights rather than fall back on Toastmasters tropes. So you're going to pick 2 things the speaker did particularly well. Then transition to something related to the second point that could have been even better. At most, you'll give 1 more suggestion for improvement, and then transition to the one thing the speaker did best. This is the sandwich method that you've probably heard about. And you want to save the thing that you liked most about the speech for the end of your evaluation so that you leave them on the most positive note possible. So this is what the page would look like after I finished taking my notes. Again, capturing stuff about what I saw on the first row, heard, and felt. And if I don't have time to write out the evaluation, I'll just make numbers next to the points that I'm going to make. As you can see, I had some ideas in this particular speech evaluation. I decided not to use them. Even though it's valuable feedback, I decided to focus on some other areas in this particular evaluation this one time. So I start off by saying I enjoyed the voices that you did. It was easy to follow the characters. You also had great character faces. So I'm able to take that and transition into the next thought. Really enjoyed your expressions. However, I noticed that your hands sometimes were clasped above your waist. So now I've gone into the visual, what was positive, switched over to a visual aspect that could have been even better. And then I talk about the fact that there were mirror gestures using both hands a great deal. But as you were using your hands, I found myself touched by the story of the kitten with the crooked paw. So I'm using that notion of the hands, using it to talk about touching, using it to talk about the paw, transitioning into that final thought, which gives the entire evaluation more of a feeling of a speech as we tie it up by having a interesting introduction and coming to a conclusion that again emphasizes the thing that I liked most about the speech. In a contest, I'm also going to take a moment to go through all of the feedback that I've done. I will mention all of the positive things, areas for improvement, the thing I like best in some summation of the evaluation. It's important to know about the judges' ballot for the evaluation contest. You're going to be judged on primarily on the content of your evaluation, how effective your information is. You're going to be judged on the way you deliver the information, but 15 points on the ballot for the evaluation contest are for the summation. So you need to say in summary or to go over my main points and make it crystal clear as if you're using two flashlights to guide the judge in for a landing. Tell them, here comes the conclusion. I like this and that. You could do better here and there. The thing I liked best was that, because that's 15 points. If you get a perfect score on your evaluation, but you forget to say in summation, you've taken an A+ and it suddenly becomes a B-. It's very important to always use a summation in an evaluation contest. Okay. Now, you want to reflect back to the opening statement if you possibly can. This is going to put a nice bookmark, book ending to your evaluation, because in a contest, it's going to be more like a speech than the sort of evaluation that you'll give in the club. Very important when you're in a contest, when you see the yellow card come up or the yellow light, that's when you begin your summation. That's when you get to the conclusion. A lot of people wait until the red light comes on. They think, okay, I've got 30 seconds to finish it off. And if you cough, you might go a second over and lose the contest as a result. Now, get into the habit of beginning your summation at yellow, just to be sure you don't go over. Now, these are the Toastmasters tropes that I cringe every time I hear them. You've probably heard these in evaluations before. Try to avoid these, especially in a contest, because the judge has heard this before. You drew me in. That just doesn't mean anything. You can say, I was immediately captivated by your description of the redwood forest. Now you're giving us something to latch onto. That's something concrete from the speech. Just saying you drew me in is something a Toastmaster says to Toastmasters when they don't know what to say to the Toastmaster. Watch out for the guidance. Use the stage. That is fine if you are witnessing a speech where someone is talking about traveling. Perhaps they could move around the stage to illustrate the passage of time. But remember that nobody ever told Steve Jobs, wow, what a great commencement speech. I really enjoyed it, except you stood behind the lectern for the entire speech. You should have walked back and forth on the stage. No, nobody ever gave him that feedback. And just to say, oh, use the stage, again, that's something that people fall back on when they don't have a legitimate criticism. Personally, particularly when I'm storytelling, I like to keep my feet rooted in one place. I use my upper body, I use expression, I act out the parts, I have different voices that I use, etc. And walking around is actually a distraction for me when I'm telling a story. So I am going to cringe if you tell me to do that. And on Zoom, a lot of people now are saying you should stand up to do your Zoom speech. If the speech lends itself to someone standing up, sure, that's good advice. But the truth is, we live in a Zoom world. I've been sitting for this entire speech so far. I hope you're not put off by the fact that I'm seated in a chair. And we need to learn how to speak effectively within this box. So if you see something that could be more effective in Zoom, give them feedback about how they appeared in Zoom, but don't just fall back and say you should stand up every time you give a speech, because that's not valid. Empty superlatives. That was an amazing speech. You were really great. I can't believe everything that I saw. You are the most astounding, wonderful speaker. You can go on like that for 20 minutes and you will never tell them anything useful. Okay? You need to be specific about what they did well, specific about areas for improvement. Just telling somebody they did a great speech is a waste of air for everybody. Also watch out, there can be a trap where you start summarizing the speech. Wow, Dennis, I really enjoyed your speech entitled My Academic Career. First, you told us about being in grammar school and all the adventures you had there. Then you talked about middle school, high school, and ultimately you talked about college. Okay, well, yeah, I know, I just gave that speech. What did you think of it? Tell me something that I can improve about that. That's what I'm looking for. So yeah, be careful not to summarize what you just heard. All right. Most important of all, we have to give honest feedback. It has to be based on the speech that you've just heard today. Now, don't fall into the trap of evaluating the speaker based on other speeches you've seen. The only one that matters is the speech they gave today, not a summation of their illustrious career. Particularly applicable when the speaker fails to follow or meet the requirements of the Pathways lesson. One time I called out a past international director for trying to read a poem when it was clear he hadn't practiced and didn't even understand some of the lines. It doesn't matter if you've been a speaker at the Commonwealth Club in the past. I'm evaluating your speech today, and I'm going to point it out if you missed the mark. So I recently discovered this book called Radical Candor by Kim Scott. Now, sometimes you read a book and you're just amazed, wow, these are such great new ideas. I never thought of that. Well, that's not the case here. I recognized and resonated with the Candor Compass instantly because I learned about it from my experience in Toastmasters. The Candor Compass has got 4 arrows. Horizontally, you have a continuum of remaining silent to directly offering challenging feedback. Vertically, you can go from not caring at all to caring very deeply. Now, some people think that love is the opposite of hate. Well, that's not true. The opposite of love is apathy, not caring at all. So in Toastmasters, if you don't care about somebody and you challenge them directly, that's not radical candor. That's being obnoxious and aggressive. So don't confuse the two. Essentially, if you're brutally honest without having developed a caring relationship with the recipient, you're being a jerk. So don't use radical candor as an excuse to be a jerk to people. However, if you're not actually practicing radical candor, this is the second best choice, because at least you're giving useful feedback, if not in the best possible way. If you don't care and you don't give useful feedback, you'll just say pleasant little nothings, or maybe you'll say nothing at all. That's insincere manipulation. You might say one thing in your evaluation, but secretly talk smack about the person behind their back. Well, that's no way to build trust with the speaker. And by the way, it's not a way to build trust with the people you talk smack with, because they're going to assume that you talk the same smack about them when they're not around. Because you do, don't you? Admit it. No. So we don't want to do that. Caring is important, but we also have to challenge the speaker. Otherwise, we're going to indulge in the most insidious of the misguided feedback. This is the most harmful of all. This is ruinous empathy, sparing their feelings at the expense of growth. And we have this problem in Toastmasters. I see it particularly with non-native English speakers. We're so busy dancing around issues and pronunciation and grammar that we give false encouragement. We say that they're better than they actually are. Now, that can make a person feel confident, full of self-esteem, and it can make them not very good. We must have the courage to give honest feedback, or there can be no growth. So that's where radical candor comes from. It's caring personally about the person, but challenging them directly. Now, Kim Scott actually changed the term to compassionate candor in a revised edition. At its core, compassionate candor is guidance and feedback that's kind and clear, specific and sincere, honest and loving. If you appreciate something the speaker did, we'll talk about it specifically and why you found it effective. A good evaluation doesn't have to be critical. It can be positive if you take the time to give examples rather than use those empty superlatives. When I read radical candor, I recognized compassionate candor because I'm already using it and have been for over a decade. So I encourage every Toastmasters club to adopt compassionate candor as their standard. And as promised, that was exactly 25 minutes. Wow. Pretty awesome. So at this point, what we're going to do is have three speakers. After the three speakers are done, we'll have three sets of evaluators, two evaluators each. And after each pair of two evaluators, I'll give evaluations of the evaluations. And we'll have some fun. Over to you, Toastmaster Abhijit.
Thank you, sir. Our first speaker is going to be Sarika Shamala. Her pathway is motivational strategies, and her speech today is level 3, project Connect with Storytelling. The purpose of this project is for the member to practice using a story within a speech or giving a speech that is a story. Sarika Shamala. Don't judge, spread kindness. Don't judge, spread kindness. Sarika Shamala.
I never judge a book by its cover. I judged people by their cover. I realized this in my final year of school. I would take a 6 a.m. Indian commuter train, a train where people hang out of the doors, to the city from a small rural coastal town. In this coastal town, a fishing hamlet, men would go out trawling the Indian Ocean at dusk. They would return at dawn with boats laden with fish. The women would then haul their family share of the catch to the bigger markets in the city on these trains. These women always wore a perfume of a dead fish. They embellished their outfits with scales of a dead fish, with the sand, the stinky sand from the beach where the fish had been dumped out from the boat. I could not stand these women. I would not even get onto that station if I saw them there. I would wait out till I saw the train rolling in. Once the train started rolling in, I would make a mad dash to the train with this 2-meter scarf bellowing behind me. If you have ever seen a Bollywood romance movie, I'm sure you have seen the scene where the beautiful heroine runs towards the love-crossed hero standing on the stairs of a train car in slow motion, accompanied by mesmerizing music. This is reality. There's no music. My run is totally devoid of any grace or beauty. I was running to make it to my internship, to make my ends meet. In this process, I would get mercilessly shoved and pushed, I knew. But the run was necessary. I had to make it to the tail end of the train. Because the last car was a ladies only car, the safest place for a girl like me. These ladies sat there, and I could not stand them. Hoping for the best, knowing the dangers, I would get into the last but one car, hoping the probability of a dangerous love. On one Monday morning, I made my usual erratic entry. In those days, the station master would stand in the middle of the station just at a point where it was a midpoint between the entire length of the train. He would then wave a green flag to signal all clear to the engine driver up front and the guard in the caboose. On this morning, as I pulled myself in, I saw an elderly fish vendor struggling under the big load to get to the last car. Instead of pulling myself in, I pulled myself out, hanging dangerously low, with that big scarf blocking the signal. When I looked over, the station master was running as if a bull running to the red scarf that I was wearing. As he got closer, I looked around. The lady had made it. For once, I didn't judge her by her cover. I just did a simple act of kindness. It made me happy. I put myself in with a smile on my face and merged deeper into the crowd. A few weeks later, on a Friday night, I arrived at the station late to take the train back to the rural village. The last car was totally empty, except for this same elderly lady sitting on the stairs of the car, embellished in that stinky perfume, the scales of the fish and the stinky sand. Covering my face, I got onto the last but one car. There were quite a few people. I felt safe. I made myself to the middle of the car and started reading my book. As the train gathered speed, two men started moving closer towards me, hurling obscenity. Feeling unsafe, I looked around. I didn't see any saviors. Plotting how to pull the emergency switch on the train, I was too busy with that when the stench of the fish hit me. The elderly lady had made herself her way to the seat across the car. She was making herself comfortable there. These two men stopped flirting obscenity at me, and their language got a lot more lucid, but it was flowed towards her. She didn't seem to care. She just kept quiet. Slowly, she opened her basket and took out a machete. That got the men to step back as if they had been hit by a lightning. When we approached the station, we got down and I thanked her profusely for helping me. I said, "It looks like I need to carry a machete to protect myself here." She looked at me and said, "No, child. You just have to look big and be confident. Where's that confident spirit of yours that jumps over baskets and runs towards the train with your scarf in the winds? Today you walked into the station like a rag doll. Where's that confident spirit of yours which makes you hang so low to block a signal? Where was that girl today? Wow. All this long, while I was judging her, she never judged me for my erratic behavior. I judged her for her cover, the stench, which in real life was actually a part of or a side effect of her making an honest living. In addition to that, when I was in danger, not considering about herself, she stepped in and stood up to protect me. That is no simple act of kindness. It's a bold act of kindness. Wow. I learned an important lesson that night. My dear friends, do you judge a person by their cover? Next time, just replace it with a simple act of kindness. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarika. Everyone, please take 2 minutes to write your feedback for Sarika. You can send the feedback to her via chat. Timer, please give me 2 minutes.
Two minutes is up.
Thank you, Boris. Our next speaker is Jamal George. Her pathway is effective coaching. She is giving her level 1 speech, evaluation and feedback, speech 1. The goal of this project is to give any speech, get feedback, and apply that feedback in next time. Jamal George, transitioning, Jamal George.
It's way past midnight. The airport runway lights, red, blue, yellow, blinking and painting the dark, silent night. We, family of 4, walking outside the small airport, trying to figure out where our rental car is. We are carrying our bags and with mixed feelings of excitement and sadness and exhaustion. And there it is, we find it. Finally, it beeps when we press the key button. We get into the car, set the direction on GPS, and drive away. As we near the hotel, I heard the GPS say, take right on left. This just doesn't make sense. How can I take a right on left? I looked at the GPS to see the name of the street is Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T. So yes, it makes sense to take left on Wright. It has been a very long day. We started from home early morning, 3 flights with some delay, and finally we are here in this small town to drop our firstborn off to college. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, I remember the night before talking to my close friend saying, I am scared. I am very scared. I am not ready for this transition. This is just too much. My friend calmly listens and says, yes, you are ready. I know it's tough on you. Remember, nothing is permanent. Everything is temporary, even your emotions. Stay strong. We arrive at the hotel and crash that night. Wake up in the morning, sunny Saturday morning, have our breakfast and go for a casual walk around the empty campus. The campus is stunning, beautiful, and has such a charming feel with high Victorian Gothic buildings, greeneries, flowing fountains, eye-catching foliage, chirping birds, running squirrels, hopping bunnies, and serene ponds. We also have fun riding e-bikes around the campus, playing with frisbees and bouncing balls, enjoying our last days together as a family of 4. The next day, my husband and daughter leaves to go back home because my daughter is starting her school. And I had the opportunity to stay back for 2 more days. The following day, my son leaves and we part ways. Our drop-off hug wasn't emotional because we had too many things to do. It was only later that day the reality hits me. 3 things that made the transition a bit easier are accepting my feelings, embracing a new role and giving them space, accepting my feelings. There is nothing wrong with feeling emotional when my son leaves to college. There are times that I will feel excited, and there are times I will cry unexpectedly. It'll be in the middle of driving that I'll be crying, or during the night I'll be crying. But it's okay to feel sad and let it all go. And then I also called my friend, and calling my friend gives me the comfort and helps me find new ways of thinking about it. I also take care of myself and give self-care. Second thing, embracing a new role. Going to college, the parent-child relationship changes. Now it goes from caretaking role to a friend role. I make it a point to listen more and also make sure that his opinion matters. And the last thing is giving them space. When I parted my son, I let him take care of his unpacking and gave him space to unpack. I also know that he is changing into an adult and he needs that independent space. And I let him have that. I know he's still maturing, but then he will come back to me if he needs some advice. If I don't force it on him, he will ask for it. And also when it comes to communication, I will let him take the lead on it. Transitioning is very hard. And because we're going from knowing and something that is familiar to something new. But I take this opportunity and take it with joy. I use this opportunity to spend quality time with those that are still at home and also focus on things that give for a sense of purpose in my life. Tell me about yourself. When was the last time you had to adapt to a new change? How did you cope with it? Toastmasters.
Thank you so much. Timer, please give me 2 minutes. Everyone, please take this 2 minutes to write a feedback for Jaimal. You can send her the feedback via chat.
Okay, time's up.
Thank you, Boris. Our next speaker is Raghunatha Raju. His pathway is effective coaching. His speech is level 3 and the project is Connect with Storytelling. The purpose of this project is for Raghunatha to practice using a speech by sharing a story or a speech that is a story. Raghunatha Raju. It's not my problem. It's not my problem. Raghunatha Raju.
just like the old MacDonald from the poem. Old MacDonald had a farm. E-I-E-I-O. There's a farmer who was staying in a distant village, a part of United States. He had different animals on his farm and a beautiful wife. Then just like the life finds its own way, so do the pests. One day, a rat walked in his home, stayed in his home, made a whole house for itself, ate all the leftovers, always looking for the different kinds of flavors and tastes that it had to get. And it also made friends with everyone. It was just like me, initiating style of communication and love to break the ice made all the friends. One fine day, came out of hole, stretched his body, and was looking out. Wow, a nice, beautiful package in the farmer's wife's hands. It must be something exciting, new food. Wow, let me see what it has. Package was unwrapped. Wow, is it a trap? A mouse trap? There's a mouse trap in the house. It ran towards France. Went to the chicken. Chicken, do you know there's a mouse trap in the house? The mouse trap, mouse trap. How does it matters to me? It's your problem. Mouse trap doesn't affect me. It's your problem, not my problem. My problem? My problem, not your problem. It felt bad. It felt low. Chicken, I thought you were my family. Let me go to next friend. Pig, pig, there's a mouse trap in the house. A mouse trap. Oink, oink. I sympathize with you, rat. I feel for you. But you see, mouse trap doesn't affect anybody else. It's your problem, not my problem. My problem? It again went towards a cow. Cow, do you know something? There's a mouse trap in the house. Mouse trap! Boo! How does it matter to me? It's your problem, not my problem. Get lost! It felt dejected. It felt all these days that these were my family. And now everyone says, it's my problem. My problem. Fine. Let me face it. The last words, it was prepared for the worst. One last time, turned and looked at everyone. Went into its hole, waiting for the worst. That night came a sound, tap! The farmer's wife thought it was a rat in its trap. She didn't know. Steps in the dark and just came to the. And it was the snake that was caught, its tail in the bone. It bit her, and she had to be rushed to the hospital. And she came sick with high fever from the hospital and had to be treated. Next day, and what goes in? The first treatment for fever, chicken soup. The chicken has to be butchered and served. The rat kept watching. Eventually, she became more sick and had to be treated more, and they had to spend a lot. So came the visitors to see her. They had to be treated with lunch and dinner. Eventually, the pig was slaughtered and served to the guests. The rat kept watching. Finally, in the funeral of the farmer's wife, many people came and they had to be treated again with delicious food, of course. The cow was slaughtered and served. Our rat kept watching. 2019 December, when a person from China told, there's a problem. Corona is China's problem, not our problem. 2020 February, Italy's problem, not our problem. And March 2020, with all our world, isn't it? A man falling on the road due to an accident, it's his problem, not our problem, until we see our own family members there. Isn't it? At all walks of life, we must have felt just like the rat or the other animals of the story. It's your problem, not our problem, is what we hear across. World War II was caused just because a problem between two countries. It erupted into a world war. The problem of Afghanistan, and some of my friends say is a problem of Muslims and not our problem. Is it? It doesn't take more than days or weeks turning into a world war, my dear friends. Before you all say it's your problem, not our problem, just look into the problem and say that. Next time, you think twice before saying it's your problem. My dear friend, it doesn't take more than a time becoming all our problem. Toastmaster.
Thank you so much. Everyone, please give a feedback to Raju in the chat. Take the 2 minutes to write the feedback. Timer, please give me 2 minutes.
Three, two, one. Ignition. Time's up.
Thank you so much, Boris. Our first evaluator is going to be Elma Knowles. Elma, are you there? She
Yes,
is going
I
to
am.
evaluate Sarika's speech. Elma
Fellow
Knowles.
Toastmasters, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, I am sure you will agree with me when I say that Toastmaster Sarika did an excellent job at presenting this evening. Toastmaster Sarika, your presentation was well structured with a good introduction, excellent content, and an appropriate conclusion with a message to your audience. As you began your presentation, I saw a very confident speaker who knew her material. And this is very important because it eliminated the need to rely on any notes. I like the story you shared and the valuable message it conveyed. The fact that you shared a personal story added value to your presentation. As you spoke, I heard an excellent story with a very profound message, not to judge, but to show kindness. This reminds me of a scripture in the Bible that states, "Be careful to entertain strangers, as you may be engaging angels unaware." And your story confirmed this to be so. I am sure that many of us in your audience have learned a valuable lesson about judging others as we sat and listened to your presentation. I love the way you animated your presentation with the appropriate hand gestures and facial expression. They all complemented your presentation very well. Great job. Another aspect of your presentation I think you did well was the clarity of your voice. You spoke with such clarity and your voice modulation was excellent. However, although you had an amazing story with a very memorable message, there are some areas I think you can work on that will take your presentation from very good to a great one. As we are in a virtual environment and speaking in front of a computer with a camera, it is important that you place your camera at eye level. During your presentation, it appeared as if you were talking down to your device, as opposed to speaking before an audience. One other area I think will move your speech from good, very good, to great is the use of vocal variety. In summarizing my observation of your presentation, I would say great job on meeting your objectives, which is to tell a story. You excelled at this and your delivery was good, as you used both hand gestures, facial expression, very animated. Overall, excellent job. And I think if you incorporate the few suggestions I just gave, there's no doubt that next time you give this presentation or another presentation similar to this, you will do an amazing job. Job well done. Back to you, Toastmaster Abichi.
Thank you so much, Elma. Let me call upon our next evaluator, who is going to evaluate Sarika's speech. Derek Roll. Derek Roll.
There's a quote that says, "There's a story behind every person. There's a reason why they are the way they are. Think before you judge that person." Fellow Toastmasters and guests, let us take this opportunity to give Sarika a round of applause for her presentation tonight. Sarika, I would like to take this opportunity to help you grow as a Toastmaster. And in evaluating your speech, I would share with you what I saw, what I heard, and what I felt as I cover three basic areas the things that you excelled at, what you may want to work on, and definitely some challenges to help you grow as a speaker. You excelled at your storytelling. I saw a Toastmaster who would have taken the time to prepare a speech to deliver to a body of persons. I saw someone who was comfortable within her space as you moved about in your virtual frame. What you may want to work on. Although I would have heard a well-crafted speech with a body, a definite opening, and a tremendous conclusion, also heard a speech which you were not fully familiarized with. So I'd want to encourage you to familiarize yourself with your speech, not learn your speech or remember your speech, but familiarize yourself so that when you reach those critical points where you may have missed a word, you know how to transition to another segment of your presentation without letting us know that, oops, I would have made a mistake here. I would also like to challenge you on your devices. I would have noticed that you would have touched your ear a number of times to fix your earpiece or your microphone. Ensure that whatever device that you use in giving a presentation, especially in this platform, that you have it set and it's easy to manage where it would not interrupt the flow of your presentation. What I felt. As you told the story of the lady coming to your rescue, I felt the joy that you would have felt as a result of her coming to your rescue. I also felt a bit of sadness because in that moment you recognized that you would have judged this lady based on her smell and her appearance. And here she was looking at you in a different light. So I just want to challenge you on, for those moments, for a deeper feeling, ensure you use voice modulation to express those things. Overall, I want to thank you for this opportunity to help you grow as a speaker. Continue to write fabulous stories with your storytelling and incorporate the feedback given to you. And I'm certain that you'll hit it out the park again the next time around. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Derek. I will now call upon Niharika Gupta to evaluate our second speaker, Jaimal. Niharika Gupta, it's all you.
Jaimal, transitioning. It's a very important topic of life. I could really connect with your story by the time I had to leave for college. I really liked the title, Transitioning. And the next thing which I really liked was how you use your hand gestures and how you slowed down your pace when you had to tell that you were told you are strong. I saw you giving a message through your story, which was how you accepted the role, accepted the feeling, giving space, how you coped up, and how you concentrated more on taking care of yourself and enjoying with the one who are at home, and also by working towards a sense of purpose and talking to your friend. But I would really appreciate that at the end of your story or talk, you mention to audience what you want them to take away in case they miss those messages in midst of the story. So it would be really great if you could tell the audience that these were the things you used to cope up with the transition you went through. And to summarize, I liked how you use a subtle humor in your speech where you said, turn right on the left. So there was a subtle humor in your story. To summarize, I liked how you changed your pace when you had to tell things. I liked your gestures. I really liked the story overall because it had a lot of message. And it was a topic which we all encounter in our life of transition. I would really appreciate that you tell your audience that what is the actual message you want to give and what is the learning you had through this transition, so that audience have something to take away in case they miss those points during the story as they get lost in the story. So that's all from my end.
Thank you so much. Let me call upon our next evaluator who's going to evaluate Jaimal's speech. Denise, it's all you.
Jaimal, you went through a big change this week and you told us your story, transitioning. Transitioning? What are you transitioning to? I followed your directional confusion when you said the GPS said turn left on right. I was amused as you learned the name of the street is right. Now it makes sense to make a left on right. Jaimal, I was there with you. I put myself in your space when you said, I'm scared. I'm not ready for this transition. I walked with your mental imagery of the campus with the changing foliage and the peaceful environment. I embraced your realization that you learned accepting your feelings, embracing your new role gave both you and your son space. When you took us down that journey through your transition, you painted a mental picture for us. You gave us some vocalization of that picture. My suggestion is to look at your grammar a little closer. I won't be grammarian today, but one thing you said was my friend says instead of said. I would like to see you paint your imagery with gestures, incorporating the vocal variety with hand and facial gestures. For example, the GPS said turn left on right. Right was the name of the street. It makes sense to turn left on right. You said, I am scared. I'm not ready for this transition. My friend said, stay strong. You could have said, I'm scared. I'm not ready for this transition. My friend comforted me and said, stay strong. Let your body move to tell the story. Here's a challenge for you. Try breathing before you speak. Pause, inhale, exhale, and breathe. In summary, transitions can be scary, but you can embrace them. Toastmaster.
Thank you so much. I will now call upon Anne-Marie to evaluate Raghu's speech. Anne-Marie.
Raghu, with an opening like it's not my problem, that kept me captivated from the very beginning. It kept me awake, and your delivery was very powerful and very captivating from the word go. What I liked in particular was opening with a song. We all know Old MacDonald had a farm. Fantastic way to open and keep everybody energized. Your strength is your emotion and your energy. I loved the drama. I loved when you started to unwrap the package and kept that suspense going in your story. Very effective. Your gestures were appropriate. I like the running, the shouting, and the animals in conflict. Well done. To grow and enhance your speech, I do believe you need to focus on some quiet periods within a story. Periods when there's very little happening so that you can crescendo up to the drama that you're so good at delivering. So please, let's have a little vocal variety in terms of quiet rising into the ultimate delivery. Have you thought about using the animals' different voices, female voices, male voices? I think that would capture the audience. So rather than shouting, think about varying that voice with characters. When you enter the lectern, you're very serious and I want to see you smile. That makes me warm when you smile. The quality of the audio is the only other thing that I think we can work on. At times it was very difficult to hear you. At times the pronunciation, for example, you said world instead of world. So that's an area that I would work on. Overall, though, your story was very inspirational, very dramatic, and very powerful in its delivery. And I have some very clear takeaways about conflict. Look at the problem, think twice before conflict. World wars are not necessary. Very good takeaway. And with the focus on the audio and the pronunciation, you are striving for great things, Raju. I can see you on the world stage. Keep striving. Over to you.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Let me call upon our next evaluator, Frederica, to evaluate Raghu's speech. Frederica, it's all you.
Next time you think before you say, it's not my problem, it's your problem. What a great speech, Raghu. I saw a confident speaker, a well-crafted speech. Great introduction. Here you singing, Old MacDonald had a farm. How you love that beautiful wife, yes. And then you went on. That speech, from that speech, I heard how comfortable you were in delivering. I had to mimic the animals. Yes, the rat with many friends. But you could mimic exactly how other friends would speak, and that was good. So I commend you on that. I can say you are an eloquent speaker from what I heard. I saw your great eye contact, your gestures, you stretched, that was good. Were congruent with the language that you were using. I loved your background. It was not distracting at all. What I would use to challenge you, Raghu, I would love you to rehearse your speech a little more. And therefore, your words would be more audible. At times, I had to really come close to hear what you were saying. And I heard that from my other evaluator. But your gestures were just intact. So many things you did right about that speech. And I could actually relate to that speech. I felt connected because what happened at that time, many of us say that, and I was waiting for that part because I said, we as humans, we do that. We say, it's not your problem, it's our problem. I liked your gestures. I liked your vocal variety. To enhance your speech a little more, all I need you to do is to rehearse, and this is my summation, and that is my conclusion. But I thank you for a great speech, because what I am seeing is a TEDx speaker, a world stage speaker, and therefore I congratulate you on this speech, and I look forward to you continuing that path with the little encouragements that were given, the little bits that you have to change. Thanks, Raghu, for a great speech.
Thank you, Frederica. Let's give a 1 minute silence for everyone to write their notes, or especially Dennis to write his notes. Timer, can you give me 1 minute?
Beep, beep. Time's up.
Thank you. Let
All
me
right.
call upon Dennis Dawson. You want more
Thank
time? Okay.
Yep. Can I talk over? See, it could be what? Ski. Okay. Thank you, Abhijit. So I'm going to give you my feedback. Now, once again, there are no experts in Toastmasters. I'm not a teacher, I'm not a lecturer, but I'm going to tell you my reflections on the evaluations I heard. So Elma, you started off by saying, I'm sure you'll all agree that this was an excellent speech. And I have to go back and fix this in my presentation. It's really important that we only speak for ourselves when we're giving an evaluation and don't speak for the entire audience. And there are a lot of ways that you can subtly do that. But if somebody in the audience doesn't agree with you that it was an excellent speech, then suddenly your entire evaluation is called into question at that point. Now, if you go back and look at the recording of this evaluation, about the first minute, you didn't give any specific information about the speech that you just heard. You said it was well structured, it had a good body, it had a strong conclusion, but you didn't give us any examples of why it was well structured. What was in the introduction, the body, and the conclusion that made you enjoy it so well? It was a little bit scattered. It's a good idea to choose a format for your evaluation. Some people like to give 3 positive comments followed by 3 areas of improvement. That's one way to do it. I like to do 2 things that were done well, 2 things that could be improved, and the 1 thing that I liked best. That's my structure. But you don't want to be going back and forth between things that were done well and things that could be improved. Bouncing back and forth makes it more difficult for the recipient of the evaluation to capture everything that you're saying. At one point, you inserted a quote about scripture in the Bible. When you do that in the middle of an evaluation, suddenly the evaluation is about you and you giving a speech and you presenting information, as opposed to reflecting on the speech that you just heard. If you want to use a quote, and this is how I'll transition into Derek's evaluation, Derek started with his own quote, but he put it in his introduction. And that's the appropriate place to add a quote, or in the conclusion, during the places where you're going to be, in effect, creating a speech around the evaluation. So if you stick it in the middle, it makes the evaluation about you. So I give props to Derek after I'd already made the note about Elma, demonstrating what I consider to be the proper way to do that. Again, Derek, when you're giving an evaluation, be sure you're speaking for yourself, and be careful about phrases like, I am going to help you grow, because that's condescending at that point. We're all here as peers. We're all here to learn together. And so I'm going to share some things that work for me. Rather than you excelled at, it seemed to me that you did very well in these areas. That was excellent feedback on the equipment. That's the kind of specific, helpful feedback. You were talking about the microphone and the earbuds. That was very useful. Not necessary to. Oh, and in a couple of the evaluations, I heard people very specifically using, I saw this, I heard this, I felt this. While we're supposed to capture that information, I would avoid being very explicit about this is what I saw, this is what I heard, and this is what I felt. And I'll come back to that a little more in one of the later evaluations. Neha, I like the way you said I could connect with your story. That's a great way of phrasing it when you're giving an evaluation. Again, I found the evaluation to be a little bit scattered, bouncing back and forth between areas that were done well and suggestions for improvement, and things that were done well. Particularly, you started to summarize the speech, remembered something, and went back and said that extra thing, and then restarted your summary. Now, of course, in a club setting, that's fine, but if you were in a contest, that would be the end of you. So if you ever intend to be in a contest, always give your evaluations as if you're in a contest. Yeah, that's absolutely the best way to prepare. And it's like I say, excellence is a habit. We are what we do regularly. So practice giving contest level evaluations in your club to be the district champion. Denise. Denise, you subtly were reciting the speech back to us. You told us first you were wondering what she meant by the transition. Then you walked around the campus with her, and again, if you go back and look at this, it wasn't a overt rehash of the speech. It was a subtle rehash of the speech. If you listen to about the first minute of your evaluation, you didn't present any new information about why it was effective. You were just saying it back again. Oh, at one point in your evaluation, you said, I'm not going to be the grammarian. And then you very specifically gave feedback as if you were the grammarian. So in an evaluation, don't count the O's, don't do the grammarian's job, don't worry about timing, just give feedback on the speech. That's why we have the functionaries, so it doesn't have to intrude into your evaluation. That way, the person doesn't get the same negative feedback twice. Yeah, that's what we want to avoid. And once again, careful not to lecture, because there are no experts in this. And even though I'm probably lecturing right now, be careful not to do that. Do as I say, not as I do. And Marie, I thought this was probably the best evaluation that I heard this evening. In a couple of places, you quoted the song, but just enough. You didn't sing the entire song. You didn't take it too far. we all remember Old MacDonald had a farm, and that was a great way to connect. That's exactly the right flavor to put into the evaluation without overdoing it and without relearning it. You gave examples and you said, I do believe. You were saying, you made it clear that you were giving your opinion and not God's honest truth. I liked your phrasing, crescendo up to the drama. That was a great way to express something that I also observed in the speech. That, and I like the way that you suggested using more varied vocal variety would, rather than just using volume. Was a great way to give suggestions without giving a harsh criticism about what you had seen. And again, you suggested he work on pronunciation. I had the same feedback for that. The clear takeaways. I have to agree with this, but this is one piece of feedback that I will give to Raghu directly. You had just told a parable. You just told a story with a moral and a message. If you then go on to state the message after we've just heard the story that illustrated it, that actually diminishes the effect of the story, which we are all supposed to understand from the story itself. So it's like they say, the best jokes are not the ones that you explain, and the best morals are not the ones that you have to hit somebody between the eyes with a crowbar for them to understand. Frederica, once again, you were using very specifically the I saw language, I heard, I felt. I'll take the blame for that because I wasn't clear. We capture the notes in those ways, but you have to be careful not to structure the evaluation that way. And the reason is that if you say what you saw first, what I heard second, what I felt third, it could be that the thing you liked best was what you saw. And so you're putting all of your great stuff at the beginning of the evaluation, and I didn't feel anything in your speech. Well, then you'd be stuck at the end and not be able to end on that positive note we were talking about. As you got to the end, you did a nice job of summarizing, but go back and listen to your evaluation. After you had summarized, you went on for another 30 seconds saying really nothing except superlatives about the speech. And so you had taken a nice evaluation, and that extra 30 seconds didn't help. And anything that doesn't help the evaluation is going to hurt the evaluation. So, and trust me, if anybody is going to go on too long, that would be me. So this is the voice of experience talking to you here. All in all, I have nothing but kudos to evaluators who are willing to step up this way and receive the feedback. What's important in evaluation is it's not just an interaction between a speaker and the evaluator. It's an experience for everyone in the room because they see the speech, they hear the evaluation, then they compare their own ideas about the speech, their own ideas if they were to give the evaluation with the evaluation they hear. And that's how everybody grows from excellent evaluations. So this is one of the strengths of the club going forward. I encourage you to keep growing in this way. Back to you, Abhijit.
Thank you so much, Dennis. We are now open to questions. So please go ahead and ask any questions you have.
I tried structuring it like when I gave the evaluation, I tried structuring wherein I gave in the good points, then tried saying what could be improved. Like the improvement was on the same lines, like wherein I had to tell what was good, like the messages, and then I had to say that could be at the end. So I really didn't understand how could I structure it better while giving the evaluation. And I do understand I forgot, like third point, I tried to give what was the other thing I liked, that was the humor. I did forget it, but I want to know how could I have structured it better.
I always love you did this thing well visually. However, there was a area for improvement visually. Or I really enjoyed the power of your voice and the melody with which you spoke. But at times I found your speaking too low for me to understand. So it's a great, I always look for those two so I can use those as my transition from what you did well into an area for improvement there. So that's going to be the bridge and connector. So again, give two things that were done well. The second thing you did well is the one that's going to lead to the first thing that's an area for improvement. You can give any second area of improvement and then try and lead that into what they did best, if you can make a connection. And that's just a nice flow. But
One question I have, and a very tricky issue for me, is pronunciation. Because a lot of people are not first language English speakers. And I know it's important. I felt awkward having to mention it, but you did say be honest.
Yes.
When it gets to a world championships, you hear people with different abilities in English. And I want some guidance from you about being tactful, but at the same time, feeding back. Because that's a very tricky section with an international audience. Thank you.
it is. However, when you see people speaking at the international level, at the International Speech Contest, there's a difference between an accent and pronunciation. So it isn't so much pronunciation as enunciation, speaking in a way that any English speaker is going to be able to hear it and understand it. And so there are some words, okay, when native Indian speakers say contribute, they often say contribute. All right, you may have heard that. So if I hear somebody say contribute, I think, whoa, what? Oh, contribute. Okay, got it. And it's going to be fine. An accent in that case is charming, really, and it's all right. But if Abhi was giving a speech and he was talking about a cardiologist, and how did you pronounce it, Abhi?
I still suffer from it. Cardiologist.
Oh no, that was really good. Yeah, the way you were saying it before, it's an airplane repairman. What did he say? Just couldn't grasp what he was trying to say with cardiologist, and so he changed it to heart doctor after people gave him that feedback. That's an excellent solution, and he wouldn't have used that solution if someone hadn't been honest enough to say, I really can't understand what you're saying when you use that word. Yeah, but don't confuse an accent with problem with enunciation, because accents are charming. And Americans all love the way people talk from all over the world because they talk so good. They talk almost good as Americans.
Question for you, Dennis. Is it always right to highlight the purpose of the speech in your feedback, whether they met the objective or not?
Yes, anytime that you're giving feedback on a pathways speech, if they clearly just nailed it, you can start the evaluation that way. Yeah, Abhijit, today, the purpose of your speech was to inspire your audience. I can tell you as a member of the audience, I felt inspired. Let me tell you the specific things you did that I found inspirational. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, but it's like I say, if they nailed it and you've got other feedback that you want to give, you can say, I can see that you have accomplished the purpose of this speech, which was to get comfortable with visual aids. You used your visual aids very smoothly. You always use your visual aids smoothly. Let's talk about the content for just a minute. You shouldn't be yelling racist slurs in the middle of your speech when your speech is about making ice cream. Something along that line.
I have a question. So you mentioned that it's not really the role of the evaluator to be a timer, but for instance, if someone has given a speech that is over time, is it appropriate for the evaluator to provide recommendations on how they could structure their speech in a way so that it remains within time?
That's a very good question. I think if someone were egregiously over time, yeah, well, now, first off, I hope that all clubs have got the 2-minute rule. Anybody who goes 2 minutes over time, so if they got a 5 to 7 minute speech and they go 9 minutes, that's when the timer claps them down. You start applauding and you don't stop applauding until they stop speaking. No, because anybody who goes that egregiously over time is being disrespectful of Toastmasters, disrespectful of the club, disrespectful of the clock. Okay, now, I think it is fine to say, I noticed that the red card was up when you finished speaking. There are a couple of areas in your speech that you could have edited down that I don't think would have taken away from the meaning. You want to be careful not to rewrite speeches for people. It's always weird when you have somebody give an evaluation. You know, there was a perfect joke you could have put into your speech. Somebody came up to me after I gave a speech. We call these the summer rooms. Some are for men, some are for women. They're the bathrooms. Ah, ha, 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 ha. You could have used that in your speech. Well, okay, but I didn't. And it was my speech and it's your joke. So we don't want to be telling people how they should write their speeches or what to replace. But I think that would be good feedback to say, I felt that you had made your point and perhaps belabored it a little on your second part of the speech. And if you had evened out the 3 sections of your speech, you would have had a better chance of ending under the yellow rather than red. Yeah, I think that's good feedback.
Dawson, I have a question.
Can I share an observation?
Okay, Gangadhar, go ahead. Yeah, good.
Am I audible? Okay,
yes.
Great. I'm attending the meeting for the first time of the Intercontinental. And one of the observations I have made here is that when you are in front of a camera and your hand gestures, you need to be very deliberate with that, because when your hand gestures move very fast, it's possible that the camera doesn't catch on to it very well. Like I saw the hand gestures with Dennis, and also one of the evaluators who were explaining about the left and the right. And it was moving so fast that you couldn't really catch on to the hand gestures. So we need to be a little bit more deliberate when we are doing it in front of a camera, because the camera takes a little bit of extra time for catching on to the gesture. So it just gets a blurry hand moving around. So we probably need to keep that in mind. Maybe if you look at the recording, you'll catch on to what I'm trying to share. Back to you, Abhijit.
Thank you, Gangadhar. Raghu, go ahead.
Hey, Dawson, on your last statement that we cannot suggest a part of the speech. For example, if I see that the title didn't make sense for the speech, first thing. And second thing, if I think that they can improvise their closing lines, especially the conclusion. So can I, as an evaluator, suggest what can be the best speech title or best conclusion? Or better rather, not best.
One way that you can give feedback on the title, you named this speech My Day Out. I would have called this The Plane That Almost Crashed, if that's what the story was, something along that line. So you can just say, I would have titled it something like that. But that's different, of course, than saying, you didn't title this right, you should have titled it The Plane That Almost Crashed. Because then you're dictating to somebody else. As far as rewriting a conclusion, I would give the feedback. I found that the conclusion didn't really strengthen your main points. I would have liked to have heard more solid restatement of your thesis. I would have appreciated a stronger takeaway. You can say something like that. But if you're actually going to rewrite the speech and give them suggestions about lines, I would do that individually with them instead of up in front of the entire group. Take them aside and offer to help to edit the speech.
Thank you. Michael? Oh, go ahead, Raghu, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I have two more things. Like sometimes we see speakers reading from the script. So I did ask earlier also few people, but I couldn't find a better solution. How do we actually tell them without hurting them that it is not okay to read from the script?
Well, let me ask you, did you enjoy my presentation tonight?
Yeah.
Okay. I read all of that presentation from a script. Did it feel as if I were reading from a script? At times, yes, but mostly it seemed to be pretty smooth. All right. That's because I've practiced reading from a script in Zoom. Now, this is going to hurt me, of course, when we get back in person. I have to memorize my speeches again. But, well, for one thing, you don't have to memorize a 25-minute workshop. You are expected to be able to work from notes, right? But secondly, there is a skill to delivering a speech using a script via Zoom. If you see somebody give a speech and it's obvious that they're reading, particularly if they're always looking off to the left, you can, instead of saying, I could tell you were reading the script, I actually learned the hard way. You say, I noticed that your eyes were looking off to the side much of the time, and I missed the connection with the camera. And that leaves them an out, but also sometimes they're not reading their script. What they're doing is looking at the gallery view in Zoom. So it looks like their eyes are reading back and forth. What they're actually doing is looking at the faces. And so they many times have memorized the speech, and it looked as if they were reading because of the Zoom format. So don't make an assumption about what's going on, but tell them what you saw, and then they can do it. When your eyes are constantly looking off to the left, it makes me trust you less. You seem a little shifty. That's just the way it appears to me.
One last question, I'm sorry. You told that we cannot suggest them to stand up and give the speech. So I think it makes it more effective if they want to convey that. What's a better way to do that?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. If it makes sense to stand up to speak, for example, when I was in the Tall Tales contest, I definitely stood up and used a green screen and made sure that it was easy to see my upper body movements there. But most of the speeches I give, particularly since I use PowerPoint a great deal when I'm delivering my speeches in Zoom, it's just fine to be sitting. But to Gangadhar's point, I do need to be sure that I'm not wiggling my hands like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. And when I do my gestures, I have to make them more direct and slow them down a little bit and use them effectively, and then put the guns away. So that was excellent feedback as well. Michael, you've had your hand up for a while.
Yes, thank you. I have a question, but it's about how do the evaluators actually address the evaluation. What I observed here is that all of the 6 evaluators spoke directly to the speaker, you, Sarika, and so on. In the clubs I've been to, we have been guided very deliberately to speak in a third person, address and share the evaluation to the whole club, which would mean that the evaluator would say, in her speech, Sarika, and then they would continue on. What is your view on this?
I very strongly feel, thank you for asking, very strongly feel that you should always give feedback directly to the person and not speak to the room. The reason for that, there's a book from the 1960s called How to Be a Jewish Mother, and by Dan Greenberg. And in that, he talks about third person invisible. This is what a Jewish grandmother does when a new boyfriend comes over. She'll turn to her daughter and say, "Does he eat spaghetti?" Talking about him in the third person while he's in the same room. And so it's rude to talk about somebody behind their back. And that's essentially what you're doing when you give an evaluation in third person to someone who's sitting right there. Now, if you're going to be giving evaluation with compassionate candor, then you should be speaking directly to somebody, and everyone else should be respectfully listening in, as opposed to talking about the person. Because really, when we're giving evaluations, we're talking about the speech we saw today. We're not talking about the person. We're talking about the speech. And that becomes more obvious when we speak directly to someone about the speech that they just gave. Now, again, that's my opinion. I'm not saying that everybody who does third person evaluations is wrong, but they're wrong. No, I'm not saying it, but they are. But I'm not saying it, but they are. Yeah, okay. Rebecca.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Dennis. My question is, for a project that have a longer time, like prepared to speak professionally, it's like 18 to 20 minutes. What is the effective evaluation that we can give? Because sometimes we tend to pay attention into detail and we want to tell so much thing to the speaker. So what is your takeaway for the project that longer, but we only have 2-3 minutes to share to the speaker? Thank you.
One of the most important lessons we learn in Toastmasters is how to stay within our time limits. I often say, when I sat down and wrote my icebreaker speech, I wrote it out. I was so proud. It was so complete. It was just wonderful. I practiced it and it was 13 minutes long. And so that was the first time I realized that it's not just getting up and having the courage to speak, it's having the courage to be quiet and sit down. So if you're giving a 2 to 3 minute evaluation of an 18-minute speech, you don't have to give a laundry list of everything that was great, and you don't have to give an extensive list of everything that could be better. Pick 2 things that stood out as particularly strong. What's nice, in 18 minutes, they have to have done something right. So you're going to be able to find something to be complimentary about. If you actually fell asleep in the middle, you might mention that in areas for improvement. And then after an 18-minute speech, I hope they have a strong takeaway out there. It's very easy to nail on that. Just because it's an 18-minute speech doesn't mean you have to give an 18-minute evaluation. And it is a skill to be able to trim it down to just the most important things that you want to talk about. I see Sarika's got her hand up.
Yes, I did. Thank you, Dennis. My question is, I've heard some evaluators give the structure of the evaluation before they start speaking and giving the evaluation. Is that a way, is that a preferred way? Because when we explain the evaluation, you get the structure, I felt. Is there a reason why we should introduce the evaluation structure before giving the evaluation?
It depends on if you're going to be giving us an evaluation in an evaluation contest. I will tell you, I definitely use a formula for a contest. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests. And where is Sarika? Sarika, I really enjoyed your speech. Then I'm going to say something clever about the speech that you just heard. Well, Sarika, I'm going to tell you 2 things that I particularly liked about your speech. I'm going to tell you one thing that I thought could be even better, but then I'm going to tell you the best thing about your speech, but you're going to have to wait for it. And then I launch into my speech. When you do that, the judges, who are just other Toastmasters, they're not experts, they aren't specially selected, they aren't paid to be there, they're just plain old Toastmasters. If you spell it out that way, it's like using the two flashlights, like I say, guiding them in to your evaluation. Then you give them the 2 points, you give them the 1 point for improvement, you give them the best thing they did. And the judges are sitting there, yeah, Dennis did what he said he's gonna do. Well, I guess he's got the first place. And they give it to you. So this is why I do recommend in a contest, particularly saying, I'm going to give you a couple of things I liked, 1 or 2 areas for improvement, and then I'm going to tell you the best thing, because it helps the judges to pick you, and that's what you want.
Thank you.
Can I also add on to what Sarika had as a query?
Well, Gangadhar, we are always looking for people to give presentations here. So Abhijit, are you going to sign him up?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Yes, so go ahead. This is a preview of your evaluation workshop.
Thank you very much. You don't really have to spell the structure on how you're going to be doing that, because it's like saying you can always go about and start the evaluation and do it in the structure that you have in your mind and how it's working on. Otherwise, it's like saying, I'm going to tell you a joke, and you never know how it's going to turn out. It might just fall flat. So if you're going to say, I'm going to start the structure in a sandwich method, and then you later realize that you had a point you needed to add, then what you have said, this is a structure I'm going to follow, might not possibly work that way then.
Yes, that's an
excellent. Back to you, Abhijit.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And you can sign me at some time, no worries.
No, that's a good point. If you give a structure and you say, this is the structure I'm going to use, and you don't follow that structure, that's the end of the contest for you.
Any other questions? Anyone? Dennis. Okay. Denise, you have a question? Go ahead, Denise.
Did I do anything right in my evaluation?
Unfortunately, tonight, Denise, I didn't write down anything that I thought was an area of strength in your evaluation tonight. But you're a grown-up, experienced Toastmaster, so I expect that you're going to just come back and prove me wrong in the future. But this was an inability of on my part to capture what I should have caught while I was writing down notes about what you were doing. Yep. I'm not an expert and I'm not perfect.
Can I
Any
ask a
other
question?
questions? Yeah,
Yes.
please, Malcolm, go ahead.
Yeah. Dennis, I'd just like your opinion. Very often when I'm thinking about what speech I want to do, I dream up some idea that it's not in Pathways or anything. I just think it's a good idea. And then maybe I'll try to match it to something that's in the Pathways. It sounds like you don't approve of that. I don't know. But for me, I like to push the envelope for me and give something that's unique and different. At the moment, I'm trying to focus on humor, for example. So I'm trying to explore different ways of, rather than looking at a sort of some kind of a formula, I'm trying to think outside the box and come up with some ideas that I think might be really good. What do you think about that?
Okay, I have a couple of thoughts about that. Number one, when I say no free speech, that means if you've got a speech, match it up to something in Pathways. Absolutely. If you can't match it to something in Pathways, it's probably because you're in the higher levels, 3, 4, and 5, where they're being more explicit about the requirements for the speech. That's why it's a good idea to start another path. I've got 3 active paths. One's complete. The second one, I've got 1 more speech to give. I've already started the third so that I can continue to give general speeches on the first and second level there. When I got my Competent Communicator Awards in the old manuals, I have 8 of them. How did I earn them? Because I was practicing for contests. Every time I practiced the speech in front of a club, I would give them the manual. And sometimes it was focused on the vocal variety. Sometimes it was focused on the gestures, but it was always appropriate to that lesson. So you definitely want to choose a lesson where the speech matches the requirements. And you're going to have plenty of opportunity for that. If you're focused on humor, if you're in the humor pathway, you can give extra electives, by the way, too.
Yeah, okay.
So lots of things there, but you had a second point that I wanted to make along with that. So always use pathways. But, oh yes, the second point is this. You said think outside the box. What I encourage you to do is think inside the box. Okay? So if you're outside the box, wow, you can just go wild. You can do anything you'd like. But what I love to see is somebody who absolutely adheres to the rules of the lesson, but completely turns the lesson on its ear. And it might be a speech about or a lesson where you're supposed to focus on your body language and your gestures. And you give a speech where you have to go completely over the top for what would seem to be inappropriate gestures. They're just way too big. However, they happen to work for the speech that you chose. And so that would be a way to think creatively within the box. And that's the challenge I would put out to you.
Because I had a couple of speeches that I gave where I was on a time traveling phone and I was talking to a person from history, and so I was on the phone and I was talking like I was on the phone to them, and I think it came over very well. People seem to find it amusing and they like that approach. Is that okay? Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. And you could apply that to the humorous, but you could also use that same approach for researching and presenting. If you were to research something from history, that's a really creative way to give a speech about the Civil War, where you're actually picking up the phone and you're talking to Abraham Lincoln and General Sherman. Then you talk to General Sedgwick. He says, "Oh, they couldn't hit an elephant at this distance."
Yeah, right. No, actually, that was one of them. I was talking to Lincoln, and then the other one was Winston Churchill. Yeah.
No, I think that's great and creative. But you see, you didn't break the rules. You didn't go outside the lesson. You were thinking within the box.
Good. Okay, that was the question. Yeah, yeah.
That's a great example.
Great. Super.
Any other questions, anyone?
Dennis, I have a question. Why is it that when we end, we just end by saying Toastmasters and not like, I look forward to your next speech? Wanted to know the reason behind it.
Because that's a Toastmasters trope. That's where people mess up, is they run out of things to say, and then they say, that great speech, I look forward to your next speech. How many times have you heard somebody say that? It's not helpful, it's not creative, it's not useful, and many times I don't look forward to the next speech, let me tell you. I'm pretty tired of hearing these guys sometimes. Right, and so what am I going to say? Well, it's always appropriate to say Toastmaster. And that way you don't have to worry about or fret or freeze at the end of the speech. You know how you're going to end it every single time. Now, in a contest, this is my how to give an evaluation at the club talk that I did today. For a contest, the way I structure the evaluation, the way I actually prepare it, I begin by writing down the conclusion. And this is the same for table topics. I don't think of what's my first line going to be. I think, what's my last line going to be? Then I can start speaking and I know where I'm headed. But very often you'll see people give a table topic. They start off really strong and they sort of peter out because they didn't know where it was going when they started. So let's see. First thing I do is I capture my two main points, two areas for improvement, and the one thing that they did very best. Then I write down the conclusion completely. Once I've written out the conclusion, I can write the introduction because I know where it's going to go. I can say something in the introduction that hints at, that foreshadows what I'm going to put into the conclusion. And there's nothing people love more than to hear a connection between the introduction and conclusion in what is essentially an extemporaneous speech, where you're getting, it's not impromptu because you've had some time to prepare, it's extemporaneous. So you have an opportunity to bookend it as if it were a well-prepared speech, and that scores points with the judges. So conclusion first, then the introduction, thesis, and then the rest of the time I spend writing down the specific quotes, specific areas that I thought they did well and areas for improvement. So if you follow that methodology, the most important thing is to get the things they did well and things that could improve. Second most important is to get that conclusion and the introduction, and then all those extra details you get in there, that's just gravy in there. You may remember them based on the areas for improvement that you've already thought of, but the more detail you can get into it, the more effective the evaluation is going to be.
Thank you.
One last question. I'm sorry, I'm asking many questions today. There's been a lot of discussion on Facebook groups about this one. Can an evaluator ask a speaker to repeat his speech if they didn't meet the objectives?
Oh, yes, in an evaluation, okay. Here's the way Toastmasters works, all right? You're supposed to give an 18-minute speech about what you learned in your path. You get up and you bark like a seal for 20 seconds. Now, your evaluator gets up and says, that was an embarrassment. I'm ashamed of you. That was terrible. All you did was bark like a seal for 20 seconds. You did not in any way meet the requirements of this lesson. And then you sign off on their lesson and they get credit for it. Why? Because it's a self-education organization. And if somebody gets up there and doesn't fulfill the requirements, but they got up there, they signed up, and they tried it, then they get credit. Okay, now obviously people don't get up there and bark like seals, but many times they get up and they fall short of the lesson. We're not here to punish people. We give them feedback. That the purpose of this lesson was to work on your body speaks. I noticed that you kept your arms flat at your sides the entire speech and never made a single gesture. It wasn't appropriate to this particular speech where you were talking about ballet. I would recommend you do this lesson again and really focus on using more elaborate gestures to go along with the content and what you're saying. So you're recommending that they try it again. And in fact, what I usually recommend is that they try it again and apply it to a different lesson. But we don't punish people and say, you don't get credit for this. You didn't give the speech properly. It's a self-education organization. And it's up to us individually to decide whether or not we've gotten what we should out of the program. But this is why DTM can sometimes mean didn't take much. If somebody gets up and week after week gives terrible speeches, they get credit for them, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're a strong speaker. And so it's like I say, I'm a DTM, but I have to prove it every time I speak. I can't say, oh, I'm a DTM, so my speech must be good.
Umesh?
Yes, I have one question. When evaluation contest, if the speaker is too good and I'm not able to find a recommendation point with the example, then what strategy I should use?
There's no reason that you have to criticize anything in an evaluation. But if you're going to say, that was just a fantastic speech, I'm going to give you 7 things that I thought you did especially well in this speech. And then you give 7 very specific areas where they excelled, where it was something that others could use, they could emulate and try to use in their own speeches. That's a fantastic evaluation. And I want to see that speech, by the way, because I've never seen a speech where I couldn't find something to say they could do even better. But
yeah, there is always something which we can say to improve upon in any speech, that I believe. But as an evaluator, I should give this you need to improve with the example. That will give a more impact as a best evaluator. That's what I feel. Just saying your vocal variety is not good, rather than if I say you can improve on your vocal variety and example, like the way one of the evaluators did, that I believe in. And that in one of the speeches I found, I was not able to find that point. So that is one thing. And one other question was already asked by one of the audience. So thank you. It was a wonderful insights from you for the preparation for the evaluation contest.
Thank you, Umesh. Amy, you have a question?
Hi, thanks, Dennis. Just have a quick question. Normally, we are told to comment or evaluate on the structure and delivery of the speech. So can we comment on the content of the speech? Should we do that or not? Thank you.
It depends on what kind of comments you want to make. For example, not all, okay. Always keep in mind that there are no restrictions on content in Toastmasters. Some people think that you're not allowed to talk about politics, religion, or sex in a Toastmasters meeting. That is not true. You can go to the Toastmasters website and they specifically state that there are no proscribed topics in Toastmasters. However, in Toastmasters, we learn how to speak persuasively. And if you get up and you give a vulgar speech that is offensive to members of your Toastmasters club, in that case, you're not being a very effective speaker. And the evaluator should give feedback on the way the content affected you, the evaluator. You want to avoid saying, you gave that speech and you talked about something that happened in the bathroom. Some people would be offended by that and start talking for other people in the audience when you don't know if anybody in the room was actually offended. At San Jose Toastmasters, when I joined the club, they had a rule that you couldn't talk about bedroom, bar room, or bathroom topics. And that meant no sex, no drugs, and politics, no politics. And this was interpreted by one particular member so strictly that people couldn't talk about the border crisis. For example, when we had all of the immigrants trying to enter at the Mexican border, he got very offended. Oh, that's too political. And then another member gave a speech about her cat jumping into the bathtub with her. He said, oh, we're not allowed to have bathroom topics in here. And he was the thought police for the Toastmasters Club. And I actually was the one who instigated voting that rule out. And we voted that rule out. It's going on 3 years ago. Abhijit, are we a filthy club with people giving vulgar speeches all the time? No. No, we took away the rule, nothing changed. We just didn't have this guy going around telling people that their speeches were inappropriate. Anyway. Yeah, so you can give feedback if you found personally the content affected you in a negative way, and you can just say that and explain why. And that's perfectly okay, but speak for yourself, not for the audience.
Could I just ask, can I just ask as a follow-on? Yeah, that's very interesting because I tend to, because of what other people might say, I tend to avoid controversial subjects. Talking about vaccines, for example, or back a year and a half ago, talking about hydroxychloroquine, and people were saying, "Oh, well, that's kill you. That'll kill you." I said, "No, it won't." But is it okay to have something controversial, even if you have differing opinions of people in the audience? I thought it would be good, but I don't want to offend anybody, though. What do you think?
Once again, we want to speak persuasively. I don't believe that anybody can get up and give a persuasive speech if they're parroting what they heard on Fox News, for example.
No, I've got lots of evidence. I've got doctors' evidence. I've got, just for example, it wasn't like that. Yeah.
Right. If you've got a researched speech, then definitely you have every right to get up, give that speech, show your evidence, and if people are offended and think that your speech was incorrect, they can give a speech that is well researched.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well delivered. And something that's really fun to do, in fact, in a Toastmasters club is to have a special themed meeting where you have two people speak in favor of something, two people who speak in opposition.
Yeah.
One thing that we're not allowed to do is give a speech that is a sales pitch for something that we're actually trying to sell within the club.
Yeah.
And we have to be careful not to associate Toastmasters with any outside commercial venture. You can't get up there and sell people on your massage parlor or something like that.
Oh, no. What about religion? Is that a taboo topic?
You have to be very respectful.
Yeah.
When you give a speech about religion, and you have to keep in mind you have to be respectful to people of your own.
Oh yes, of course.
As you give the speech, but no, I've heard some wonderful speeches that are talking about the historical aspects of the Bible, things along that line.
Because I've been doing a lot of research recently, and there's a lot of misunderstanding in the Bible. They just don't know. And I've done all the research, and I show them, look, in the original Hebrew, this is what was meant by that. And they get all upset and everything. Oh my God! And I better avoid that topic. But it's such a good topic, though.
Well, and it could be, sadly, that as Anita just said, know your audience. That is really that's exactly the point. If you want to talk about those subjects, and the people in your club, then you have to adjust the way you discuss it so that it is going to be inspirational, persuasive to the people in your club. That's tricky. That takes work, but it's well worth the effort when you succeed at that.
I know I'd love to do that, but I just worry about one or two of them, reacting.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, one thing that you can do, Malcolm, is take them aside and say, "I'd really like to talk about this topic. Let's discuss. How do you think I could do this most effectively?" Because
that's good on there. Yeah, great. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you, Malcolm. Any other questions, guys? Go ahead, Sarika.
This is actually you answered this question, but I have a quandary because it's right now. It's in my bucket. I had a member in my club who was finishing her DTM. She gave a DTM speech which did not stand to the standards of a DTM. And I did talk before this, you had inspired me to say DTM is a way of living. And I talked about it a few months ago. And one of my VPE comes back and says, I'm the president of the club. The VPE comes and says, this is such a horrible thing, and I'm not going to accept this as a DTM project. There are a few other red flags. And now it's a big tussle. Because the speech really is, she has been there for many years. So the speech itself doesn't even have the basic structures. I'm really fighting this battle, what to do about it.
One of the nice things about Pathways is that there is now the DTM project.
Yes.
That's the project that you work on under the guidance of World Headquarters. And this is one of the reasons that they've introduced that, is because they want to be sure when you do that project that you are earning a Distinguished Toastmaster Award. And this wasn't always true. When I did my high performance leadership project, which is what you used to do for the DTM, it took me a year and a half, and it involved revamping the educational system in District 57. So that was my HPL. Some other people would do a club open house for their high performance leadership award. And it could be for some people that's as high they think they can perform as a leader in Toastmasters, and they earned their Distinguished Toastmaster Award. So it's like I say, a DTM is not a plaque on the wall. You can't say, I'm a great speaker because I'm a DTM. You can just give a great speech and people will say, oh, you must be a Distinguished Toastmaster. So you have to live it and not just say it. So the short answer here, frankly, is let baby have his bottle.
Okay, so basically I can ask, what did the Toastmaster International say? Can I ask? Can I ask the person, what did the Toastmasters International say? Did they approve your project, or because the club has to send the letter, right? Accepting this person has finished the DTM. That's how it came to me.
Oh, yes. If you're saying that they had a project approved by Toastmasters International, and it's clear that they did not fulfill the project.
That's how I feel.
Okay, well, okay, I misunderstood that. Because there's the final speech that you give, and there's the completion of the Toastmasters project. That being the case, I would contact World Headquarters.
Perfect.
And
Thank
just
you.
ask them, discuss it with them, because this is one of the things that they're trying to avoid, is people who just go through the motions and suddenly they have a DTM, because it doesn't make the organization look good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That helps, because she did a speech craft which was crammed through. When I appeared at the speech craft, there was nobody. I'm like, how is that a speech craft? That it gives me a little difficulty to approve that. That's okay. I'll ask them. Thank you.
Well, and that's one of the tricky things too, is that you don't have to succeed with your DTM project, but you have to show leadership.
Yes.
And so, well, I gave a speech craft and I put a flyer in the men's room and nobody came anyway. And that flyer cost me 10 cents. So it's not like I didn't do anything. So make me a DTM. Wow. Yeah, they're trying to avoid that sort of thing. So somebody has to really work. And if they fail at their actual mission, then they have to report out what they learned from it. Because at the end of the day, this is an educational organization. And I learned not to hang it in the men's room. Give me a DTM. No. They have to actually grow from the experience. So that would be worth a discussion with World Headquarters. Now, I'll also give you this caveat. Having talked with World Headquarters about similar things in the past, very often they're going to say something similar to let baby have his bottle. Not there. It's okay. Yeah, in this case, yeah. So be prepared for that. But it's worth a discussion. And it's worth a discussion directly with the Toastmaster. I hope you've had the discussion with her as well.
Yes, we did have that discussion. I want this. I did it. I should get credit.
Right. Yeah. I do a little bit of follow-up, but I wouldn't risk your personal soul on this. Don't hang your reputation on whether or not this person gets a DTM. It's a self-education organization, and always use the mantra. What is it, Avi? She's doing the best she can.
She can, yes.
At her current level of development.
Thank you.
If you can say that about all of us, doing the best she can at her current level. You can say it
I
about
will, I will practice that mantra before I talk to her. Thank you.
Andrea?
Yes.
Go ahead, Andrea.
Your question is?
You raised your hand, Andrea, so that's why I'm calling upon you.
Maybe it's an error I have. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions, anyone? Dennis, by the way, you're making me rich today. I'm charging $50 for every YouTube link I'm sending out. So there are a lot of people asking me for YouTube links. So thank you for making me rich tonight.
Yeah, that's what I live for.
If there are no any questions, thank you so much, Dennis. Dennis, this was entertaining. I learned a lot, and it's always good to review things. So thank you so much. We're sincerely appreciative. And thank you for serving this club. We really appreciate that.
Well, I never tire of the sound of my own voice. You know that.
Thank you, Dennis. Victoria, how was your experience today?
No question. How
Yes.
to stay in touch with Dennis?
How
I'm-
to stay in touch
Going
with Dennis.
intercontinental.
Oh,
Okay, Denise, thank you.
Andrea is my guest.
Yeah, thank you so much, Denise, for inviting me. This was wonderful. Thank you so much. Beautiful evening.
Thank you. Victoria, how was your experience? Go ahead, Dennis.
I was just going to say, you can always reach me at my email address, tmdennisdawson@gmail.com. I never get tired of talking about Toastmasters. Victoria, how was your experience this evening?
Dennis, thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed agreeing with everything you had to say about evaluations. I sometimes feel I'm a voice in the wilderness about some of these issues, and that people find that having a discipline or a expectation or a structure or a high standard is something is frowned upon. And I don't agree with them. If we are a learning organisation and we are hoping to improve, then the skill is to suggest a few things that somebody could do differently next time, to try something different next time to improve their presentation. I don't think that's a bad thing, but I often feel I'm a voice in the wilderness on that one. So thank you for a fabulous presentation. I agree with everything you said.
And anytime you want to give a suggestion, you can always phrase it as what works for me, what I've tried in the past. And you can lie even. You can say, well, what I've tried in the past is to wear a skirt. Okay, no, I probably didn't. But yeah, you can say something I've seen other Toastmasters do. So it's not you should, but something I've seen that works, you could try.
Sharing your knowledge and your wisdom, but I also appreciated your comments about timing and people being discourteous or rude, and that's how I take it. So when somebody does a 5 to 7 minute speech and they blow over 10 minutes, which happened on Thursday, and I'm wanting to throw things at my computer, I think, well, hang on, you've got no regard or respect for me. I've got a time frame, I've got a commitment to come to a meeting for a specific time, to learn certain things, to help mentor others, whatever, all of those reasons. And when somebody is disrespectful and goes over 10 minutes, I think, what? You know, it is rude.
Speak to your club executive committee and ask them if you can introduce the 2-minute clapdown. So if someone gives a 4-minute table topic, obviously if they're sharing about the death of their parent and they feel the need to go on, you want to be respectful, but very often it's just somebody blathering on past. And when that happens, 2-minute clapdown. Now, there is plenty of precedent for this in Toastmasters. When you are a district candidate you get to give a 2-minute candidate statement. At the end of your 2 minutes, you are clapped down by the timer. And a woman ran against me when I was running for district governor, and lo and behold, she went past that 2-minute mark, got clapped down, and that is probably one of the reasons that she lost to me that day. And yeah, as you say, this is also true when you're doing a conference. Very often, you've got a keynote speaker, and they get to the end of their time, they say, "Hey, audience, can I have 5 more minutes?" And the audience goes, "Thank you." And they go on, blah, 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 and they probably take 10 minutes. Every event for the rest of the day, they don't know whether they're supposed to start on time. They're supposed to start 10 minutes late. If they start 10 minutes late, are they supposed to end on time? Because this keynote speaker, who is supposed to be a professional, went 5 minutes past their time. And so we're not training ourselves to be talking in the back of the Denny's. We are training ourselves to be professional speakers and respectful of other people's time. So this is the sort of argument, you can feel free to hook me up with your executive committee if you like.
Oh no, it wouldn't happen in my club, Dennis. It was the club I was a guest at. Wouldn't happen in my club. They know better.
I love it.
Val, how was your experience?
Thank you, everybody. I've very much enjoyed today, and I will reiterate what you've all been talking about with regards to timing. And I believe one of the important things about Toastmasters is to learn to say what you have to say in the time you are given to say it. And if you are given 3 minutes, you say it in 3 minutes. If you're given 5 or 7 minutes, say it in 7. If you're given 20 minutes, you have to expand your speech to 20 minutes. But that's the key. Learn to say what you have to say in the time you have been given to say it. So thank you very much. And I'm one of Victoria's club members, and we are very, very strict with our club. We have a 1-hour meeting. And in that 1 hour, we have 2 speakers and table topics plus the evaluators. And we finish right, we start right on 12:30 and we finish right on 1:30. And that's it. But thank you, everybody.
Raghu, how was your experience today?
Great experience. And then I got the feedback that I needed certainly. But Dennis, I have a question, but maybe I'll connect offline and the speech. Thank you.
Anita, how was your experience?
My experience was excellent. I definitely want to have a copy of the recording. I've texted you for this or chatted with you. There is so much to learn here. I would need to review this 10 or 12 times. I will get a dozen eggs and mark each little hole at the times I've listened to it. There is so much to learn. The thing I want to follow up, I think it was Val that said strict, say 3 minutes what you need to say 5 minutes what you need to say, and let us respect the fact that nobody interrupts us while we are using that 3 or 5 minutes. So we should be gracious and not go over it. Thank you. Wonderful.
Malcolm, how did you feel?
Oh, I thought it was great. I really enjoyed Dennis. I always enjoy his workshops. He's so knowledgeable and he says a lot of the things that I'm thinking, but when Dennis says it, then I know that it's right. so he's great. Yep, I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Malcolm. Any other guests would like to share their feedback? Sam, Rebecca, Keith?
Yeah, Sam here. Just wanted to say thank you. That was really informative. I've never been to another club before, so it was great to see how you guys operate. I'm with Victoria and Val, and they run a pretty tight ship. So it was good to see how you guys go as well. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Sam. Rebecca.
Yes, thank you so much also, Dennis, for your insightful and valuable feedback as well. A lot of key takeaway for me, especially we also I'm really interested in terms of the evaluation. So I think from the sharing that we gave, I can try to practice more and more, and then try to take evaluator role more and more also to sharpen my evaluation skills. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Where are you coming from?
I'm from District 80, Singapore.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Can I also say something?
Yes, please, Keith, go ahead.
Yes. So this is my first time actually joining another meeting from another club. I'm a new Toastmaster, so this was very informative, and I didn't expect it to be very interesting because, you know, joining Toastmasters, I saw the speaking and the table topics as the fun stuff. I didn't think that evaluation it could be fun. So today was very interesting.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you. Yvonne, any feedback from you?
Yeah, sure. And I'm very thankful and grateful to enjoy such wonderful discussing how to be the evaluation. I think that is knowledgeable and enhance for my knowledge. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. Yvonne, where are you coming from?
Thank you. Thank you. I'm from Taipei. Yeah. I'm currently joining the Taipei Toastmaster. Yeah. In Taiwan. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. If anyone wants to share anything, please go ahead.
Hello.
Hello, Amy.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed today's workshop. I think it's one of the best evaluation workshop I've ever had. Thank you, Dennis, for that. And I particularly like the structure, the format. Use the eyes, the ear, and heart to note down the message. I haven't done this before, like a plus and minus as well. So just really give us a space to look down, and then trying to get 2 points, plus and one to organize from there. I found it's great way to organize the notes. So, and also today's session, I found it's also is like the whole thing, how we evaluate different levels of evaluation. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Amy. Amy, where are you coming from?
I'm from Sydney, Australia. Okay. Yeah,
Nice.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
When do the contests begin? Is it January?
So we only have this time we have table topics and humorous speech contest. We don't have.
No,